Fist family, welcome to my wrap up of what Mike and I have been doing for our songwriting episode series regarding this year's spooky tune, Stranded in the Shadows. Hope you enjoy.
It began as a dream with two kids in high school. There was a spark, magic, chemistry. Then life happened. But 30 years later, the fire was reignited. The band is back, better and badder than ever. They prolifically turn out new music, songs hitting the tops of the charts in various corners of the world. Rockin' you since '82. I am best.
So, I know that Mike has already done his wrap up episode regarding Stranded in the Shadows, and he asked if I'd be able to do something from my end, just giving you my sort of last thoughts about how we put the song together and everything that went into it. So that is what I'm here doing today. Whew, it's a crazy time of year. I am now within the final month of work here at CMU, and so everything's just coming, and it's taken a lot. And being able to get this song from beginning to completion, just in the 2 or 3 weeks that we've had, has been really a good salve for my soul. It's still work. Don't get me wrong. Putting all this stuff together is work, but this is the fun kind of work. What I do here as my day job is enjoyable, but we are entering the high stress time of year, and right now I'm just kind of like hanging on by my fingernails. So that's all totally unrelated to wrapping up the song. I just wanted to let you know where my headspace was. So, some last thoughts. I think the song came together really well. We are done. We're officially done with the tune. I was on the computer last night at home submitting the artwork, and I can't wait for you to see the artwork. I was getting that submitted and all of the stuff taken care of for distribution. We have the final audio track. Mike is going to get that uploaded from his end because he's got whatever big fat files they need and the high quality that they need to get uploaded for that. So I should be able to finish that up today, get it paid, and then their digital elves are going to get it into distribution. We have put a release date of October 30th on this. Normally, we like to follow the industry standard of releasing songs on Tuesdays, but given that in order to have it out in time for Halloween, we would need to have the release date be a week from yesterday, what it would be now. Is just not going to happen. So I put the release date of October 30th. Maybe that can be like a nice premiere for you, to be able to listen to it there on Friday night, the night before Halloween. So it's all done and it's wrapped, and I'm really happy with the final product. Really happy with the final product. So I need to think about some things to tell you with regards to everything that went into it. So give me a minute to think about that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so some thoughts about what went into the song. The most important thing for me, I think, in anything that Mike and I do together is our partnership, which has been going strong since 1982. The whole backstory of us sitting in study hall and writing songs and planning the band and everything. Even from those earliest days, our band partnership has been really, really good, really strong. The fact that we took a long hiatus after I left for college and before we decided to really make a go of this in the early teens, none of that wasted time did anything to diminish our songwriting partnership and everything that we can do together. A lot of the partnership relies on a give and take. So whoever is the originator of a particular song idea, whoever is the one to present it to the group, so to speak, usually takes the lead on how things should sound. But there's always a necessary part of a partnership that says, okay, well, you heard it this way. Here's how I hear it that reflects how you gave it to me in its original form, but I think this is a little bit better, or I think this is a little bit more true to the way I want to present it. So if Mike brings a tune in and it's his origination, he might have a particular idea for drums. And in fact, when he delivers an idea to me to begin with, he will often just have grabbed drum track from some open source place and have shunted it in there just so that he has something to work with as he's laying out his guitar parts. At every time that happens, I will say, all right, now can you give me, now that I've heard what your intent was, can you give me just the basic track with a click and strip out all those drums? Because it falls to me to have to put together a drum track that fits my style of playing. I'm not necessarily going to try to sound like whoever, I don't care. I'm not going to sound like Neil Peart, that's for sure. I'm not going to sound like Lars Ulrich, that's for sure. I'm going to sound like me, and the way I sound, I guess, is an amalgamation primarily of Peter Criss and Bunny Carlos, plus my own sort of signature licks that I've been playing regularly since I was 10 years old, the first time I actually sat down behind a kit of drums. So I need to be able to put my drum parts in there that sound right to me, that sound like things that I would play, frankly, that sound like things I can play. If there's a whole bunch of double bass drum stuff or a whole bunch of real heavy tom stuff like Frankie Banali might have done with later Wasp releases, that's just not how I play. So it needs to sound like me. Excuse me. On the flip side, there's a song that I originate and bring to the table, which is kind of what Stranded in the Shadows was. It began as my idea. You've heard in previous episodes how I sang through some of the guitar parts and told Mike, this is how the guitar should sound. Well, then he took what I gave him and put his own imprimatur on those guitar parts and made them, in the process, sound not only a little bit more like something he would play, but in doing that, a little bit more sound like Iron Fist itself. And that's good. Whatever is ultimately good for the sound of the band is what we should both be striving for. And that's really the compromise that comes into a partnership like this. The compromise might be the arrangement itself. I had heard going from the second chorus into the bridge as being a direct thing. Come out of that second chorus and go straight into the bridge. So, stranded in the shadows, dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, I'm stranded in the shadows, boom, bridge. When I got the recording from Mike, there was one time through the main riff there, and I emailed him right away. I'm like, boy, what I had sent you as my sort of scratch demo take on it didn't have that riff in there. He got back to me and said, I really feel like the riff works there, and laid out a number of reasons why in the email. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. It's the kind of compromise that does an end run around all of the sort of divisive Facebook memes maybe you see. Somebody posts a thing and it's like, yeah, not going there. The point is, with a partnership, the compromise needs to be so that we both feel like we've got the best song that we're capable of delivering at this point in time. That all just means that we have to leave ego at the door. And make no mistake, we both have pretty big egos. I mean, Mike is very definitely an alpha dog. He likes to be the boss. Our sort of go-to phrase for how we work together is you drive, I'll steer. So when we both have agreed, even if it's not stated out loud, if we both agree to leave ego at the door and just get the stinking work done, then the work ends up being really pretty great. I think if we ever noticed that our egos were starting to clash, not only would one of us say something about it, hey, ego at the door, but I think the final product would definitely be less for it. So the partnership is really, really definitely a big part of what we do, and it's I think it's really the bedrock upon which our whole partnership is based. What else do I have for you? I have the idea of what the final product sounds like. We decided early on to make this series about the songwriting process and how we go from nothing to a completed song through the writing of it. There's all sorts of stuff we can do in the future that has to do with the recording process and how we get stuff from the rough demo version of what you've seen on some of the earlier episodes to the final product that you're going to be hearing in a week or 10 days, something like that. Excuse me. So, but there are some things that go into our tunes that I feel like need to be addressed as part of the songwriting process itself. In some ways, what we put on the recording is as much about the writing of the song as it is the recording process. I learned early on this term ear candy, where it's not just about having the guitars and the drums and the bass and the vocals. Sometimes you really need a different layer of stuff going on in the song, and that's what we both refer to as ear candy. In these Halloween tunes that we do, these spooky tunes, a lot of that ear candy is like special effects sounds. It can be what I requested at the beginning of this. Hey, Mike, in the intro of this song, can you give me a bunch of high, like, just scrapey sounds? And he got back to me and said, actually, I think that's just all synthesizer stuff. The track I was referencing for that, I said, listen to this tune. And he said, actually, I think that's all synthesizer stuff, but it gives me an idea of what you're after, and I can put it together. Boom. The next version of the tune that he sent me in a long string of versions, the next version of the tune had all that stuff in there, and I'm like, perfect. I don't know how you got it. I don't care how you got it, but that's exactly what it should sound like. On a lot of our tunes, we will have extra instruments. And those aren't, so far for us anyway, those aren't like even real instruments. They're patches from good sources, but they're MIDI patches that get dumped in. So there have been some of our Fistmas tunes where we've included some horns. Sometimes organ gets included, although Rachel certainly, as a very, very qualified keyboard player, could do those things live. A lot of our Christmas tunes have some chime patches thrown in. Sleigh bells certainly get thrown into the mix. Castanets, any kind of little percussion toy that I feel like needs to be thrown in, that's all ear candy. There's claves in some songs. There's a little castanet riff in Hey Kelly. There's tambourine in Hey Kelly. So all of these songs have just little bits of stuff that get thrown in that make it really pop, And we're considering all of that ear candy stuff even as the song gets written. Hey, we could put this in here. Me saying, hey, give me some of these real high spooky sounds here. So that stuff is part of it as well. What else do I have? Influence. Influence is a big part of songwriting. And I listen to a lot of music. Mike is kind of famous for saying that when he's left to his own devices, he doesn't really listen to a lot of music. I know that when he's like being Mr. Homeowner and like cooking in the kitchen, I know he's always got something just playing on the radio in the background. But when he like drives from point A to point B, he's not listening to the new Striper album like I am. A lot of times what he's doing is work for the band. He's listening to different cuts that we've put together and try to figure out, okay, when I get home, this needs to be boosted, this needs to be brought down, whatever. But I listen to a lot of music. I listen to music on the drive to work, on the drive home, anytime I'm farting around in the kitchen. And we are all, as original creators, as creators of original content, we are all the um, sort of the synthesis of everything that we've ever listened to. And I believe for me that I can only be a better creator of original songs if I have more influence in my background. I mean, you can see all this Kiss crap behind me, so clearly Kiss is a big influence on me. And that's probably no surprise when you listen to Iron Fist music. But we shouldn't sound only like Kiss, because I'm not only listening to Kiss, I'm also listening to Cheap Trick. But then to balance that out, I'm also listening to the Bee Gees. I listen to Stryper, the old stuff from the 80s, and especially like their most recent 3 albums are just phenomenal. And I even told Mike that for that instrumental break, after the second chorus and after the bridge, I wanted something that sounded very much like a stripery riff. He got what I was after right away. So I listened to tons of late 70s radio pop, and I listened to Cheryl Wheeler, and I listened to a lot of like more recent hard rock. You know, it's so easy to find stuff that you like just by going in and just doing a search. Do a search for a particular band and then say, oh, what else are people listening to? So it's really easy for me to find a lot of that stuff. All of that influence should come out in a sound that is definitively me. So, Mike, I was teasing Mike at one point because he had said something about putting a guitar line in the chorus of Stranded that was like basically the arpeggiated chords from Black Diamond. And he's like, it's not really Black Diamond, it's just a chord progression. And he's totally right. Does it sound like Black Diamond? Yeah, but it's just a chord progression. Same thing, he immediately followed that with da-na-nan, 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 da-na-nan. And I teased him online. I said, oh, good. So I see as soon as you stole Black Diamond, you decided to steal Rocket Ride, which is da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. And he laughed at me and said, well, I mean, I wasn't even thinking Rocket Ride. It's just a chromatic scale. Right. The fact that it's a chromatic scale reminds me of Rocket Ride. And is that tuning back in his influence? Yeah, sure, of course. He's a Kiss fan too. Chord progression that I took from the Axe song Now or Never became the entirety of Hey Kelly. And again, I didn't need anything to do with that Axe song other than hear the chord progression, start freestyling lyrics over top of it. And I called Mike and I'm like, hey, I've got a great idea for a song. There it is. So anything that I'm listening to, anything that's one of my influences, is sitting there waiting to come out. I mentioned Cheryl Wheeler, who's a kind of a hippy-dippy older folk singer. Our music certainly doesn't sound like Cheryl Wheeler's music, but her craftswomanship with lyric creation has certainly influenced my lyric writing. When I see the perfection with which she can deliver exactly what she intends to with exactly the right words, that influences me to say, all right, don't just settle for this. Make sure you've got exactly what the right word is in the right spot to deliver exactly the meaning you intend to. So all of that influence just really comes together and hopefully sounds like a cohesive unit that is Iron Fist, and not any one of those individuals, just taken in by themselves. As far as addressing the idea of getting like the perfect lyric, I have to then, having just used the term perfection, I actually have to dial back from that and say that in a lot of respects, done is better than perfect. And I think Mike addressed some of that at the end of his sort of wrap up about this. Done is better than perfect. What did he say? Something like seek perfection, but I don't know what he said. Go back and watch his thing. The idea is if I'm seeking perfection, that's good. If I expect to attain perfection every single time I go out, nothing's ever going to get done. And eventually stuff has to get done. So done better than perfect is not an excuse to have subpar product. Done better than perfect is just the acknowledgement that at some point this song needs to be done and we need to go on to the next one. At some point, this EP needs to be done and we need to go on to the next one. You know, Breaking the Rock and Talking to Machines were not supposed to be two EPs. It was supposed to be one single album called Breaking the Rock. But we got to the point where we had 5 tunes done and it had been a while since we'd released anything. And we agreed that now is the time to release this. Let's release this as an EP. It's done. And then we can move on and make Talking to Machines its own EP when we get those songs done. So done is better than perfect. Seeking perfection, I think, can lead you down a rabbit hole of always twiddling with things, and maybe flipping back and forth between any number of things that might be equally good. I remember an article with the director Bryan Singer years ago, like when the X franchise was first really getting rolling. X, like X-Men, right? Snicked. Okay, that's clause. Never mind. Anyway, Bryan Singer was being asked about his directorial process. And the interviewer acknowledged that Singer is apparently famous for constantly twiddling with the edit of his film, trying to choose. If he's got 30 takes of Logan looking menacingly at the camera, you know, like, all right, Logan, look menacing. And all right, let's do another one of that, look menacing. All right, and another one that, you know, he might get 30 takes of Logan looking menacingly at the camera. And then he's in an editor booth, like constantly flipping back and forth. Do I like take 18? Do I like take 26? Are both of those better than 14, or is 15 better? They might all be more or less equally good. And so his response when the interviewer said, how do you know when your movie's done? When is your movie done? He said, my movie is done when the delivery guy from FedEx is banging on the door to pick the film up to take it to the copy center where they make all the copies to ship out to thousands of theaters for distribution. He's like, if the FedEx guy is supposed to pick the movie up at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm still sitting in the chair at 7:55 trying to decide which take is better. The movie's not done until the FedEx guy comes and picks it up. Then it's done. So I think you can seek perfection and wind up just in a place where either nothing gets done or maybe it sounds too perfect. I remember with Eagles, a different article that I read. Obviously, Eagles and Bryan Singer are probably not in the same article. An article I read about Eagles, I think it was the bass player said something really terrible went and happened to Eagles. They went and invented Pro Tools. And so now Don Henley can go in and replace every single note. And so he does. You know, and this is not a castigation of Eagles. I mean, who am I, right? So it's not a castigation of them or their process or the process of what Henley does. Henley, who has so many songs that I just absolutely love. His songs sound great. But I think what Schmidt was saying there was just the idea that, you know, you don't need to replace every note. Bruce Springsteen, too, was asked once about his use of Pro Tools in recordings that he does. And he said, you know, I'm happy to leave some stuff in the final product that maybe isn't perfect if it delivers the intensity that I want. You know, he's like, you know, I can go into the recording booth to lay down a vocal and I can have an otherwise really great, intense vocal track delivered exactly the way I want. And maybe there's one note that's off a little bit. So you go in and you listen to it and you're like, is it off enough that I actually have to redo it? No. Is it off enough that I might take Pro Tools and just nudge it a little bit to get it, is it really off pitch? Is it really out of tune? If the answer is yes, then you use Pro Tools to nudge that one spot, because otherwise the rest of the take was great. So done. Done is better than perfection. And I think what you're seeing from Stranded in the Shadows is that we are done. So I should probably tell you what is coming up next. Let me think about what's coming up next. Okay. What's coming down the pike is a whole bunch more stuff. So we have a tune that is already really pretty near completion that we're getting ready to deliver to Matt Porter over at the Kiss Room. Rock on, Matt. For another series of Kiss Room demos, and we're excited about that. The tune sounds pretty great. Obviously, following that, we have this year's Fistmas tune to get through. Mike, in one of the sort of private messages he sends me on a regular basis, said something like, "I assume you have something in mind for the Fistmas tune, because I got nothing." Yeah, Mike, sure. I got it. Oh, it's taken care of. Don't worry about it. So we have the Fistmas tune to do this year. And probably for that one, I would imagine that we will do another series similar to this. I don't really know what you want to see with that. We're happy to do another just songwriting series like we did with Stranded. If you would like to see that, that's great. Maybe you want to see more about the recording process. I don't know. If there's something you'd particularly like to see us do with the Fistmas song to present over YouTube, let us know, will you? Put something down in the comments and say, oh, I think it'd be really cool if you did this, or, whatever. Or even if it's like, yeah, sure, just do another songwriting thing. That's fine. But leave us a comment so that we can try to give you more of what you want to see. Anyway, so we've got the Kiss Room demo tune, we've got the Fistmas tune, and then we've still got a full album whose name is yet to be revealed. We've still got a full album in the works. I mean, we have 5 tunes more or less done for that. And when I say done, I don't mean mixed and mastered and with all the ear candy and stuff in there. But the arrangements are done, the lyrics are done, most of the rough tracks are already cut. Mike probably needs to throw in final vocals on some of them, but there's a lot of them that are done. That album was supposed to drop this past summer. Of course, Corona sidelined a bunch of people. A band like Stryper went out and said, all right, well, we're going to use the pandemic and make an album. Some of the rest of us was like, whoa, holy smokes. We all have such different lives and different groups of people with whom we need to be in contact that getting everybody together to try to make a record seemed like a really poor idea in March, April, May. So that next full album, follow-up to Don't Fake It, has been sidelined for a while, but that doesn't mean the work on it has stopped. And I know for that album, you're going to hear a song from Rachel, finally. I think Frank has a tune that he has been working on, or a tune that he's at least suggested and brought to the table. We would love to include that on this. So much of Iron Fist seems like it's, the Mike and Scott show. And since we're the founders of the band, that only makes sense. But never doubt that Frank and Rachel are part of the group. And even though they live several states away from us and have their own lives going on there, the same way Mike and I have our own lives going on here, they're still invested in the process. And I think you're going to hear a much bigger footprint from them on this next record. So, a lot of good stuff coming up. A lot of stress and hecticness for me as I work to close out the fall semester of 2020. And I think that's going to do it for me. All the stuff that Mike usually says. If you like the video, please thumbs it up. Share it with everybody you know. Subscribe, all of that good stuff. I don't have any endorsements to tout, and right now I'm just I'm just word salad. So I'm going to stop. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you want to see next. And remember, as always, rock.